So, you're in the kitchen with a significant other, maybe your partner, and they're talking about something, and they're being really irritating. They're saying stuff that's really triggering, and you can feel that there's this heat in your belly, and you're holding on to it. But you're holding on to it, and it's building, and it's starting to build up inside, and you can feel this rising heat. But you're keeping quiet. But there are these thoughts racing through, and these feelings racing through your body, and it's building towards the point of no return. What happens next? So, either you blast them verbally with how you feel, and maybe you say something cutting, or disembowel them with a blade with your words, or you shut down inside and run away, and you go into the next room and you try and process what's happening, and you now that you're in the next room, you can think of all the words, but you're too afraid to say them. So if you're the first person who just lets it out, who just blasts and lets it out, this video is about you, the ones with the strong fight response. Now to contextualize, we're talking about the fight response as part of the 4 Fs of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Got that? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Let me try and demonstrate that. Fight, flight, that's kind of running man. Freeze, so when conflict happens you just freeze. Or fawn, and you're very nice. I've got a little bit of that and a little bit of flight, and I've got a bit of all of them actually. So I want to give a shout out to Peter Walker, whose work on PTSD is extraordinary. I've linked him below, so please have a look. So, are you one of those people who blurts out their feelings, fights and gets it all out? Or do you know people like that? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to, hit that subscribe button down below too. In this video, we will investigate the defense pattern that is dominated by a fight response, how this voice operates, how it gets shut down, and what to do about developing a healthier response. So, a quick why me? So, who am I to talk about this? I'm inspired to do the work at the messy meeting point of voices and trauma, and to focus on liberating shut down voices to help them become clear and empowered and healthy. It's part of my mission here on planet Earth after I was actually teleported down from the mothership a few weeks ago, and I found myself doing this work, and so that was a joke. And so within the heart of this, I feel that clear, powerful, heart-centered voices are going to help turn around the way that we live on this planet. Shut down voices create passivity and disconnection. And as the eminently quotable Albert Einstein once said, the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. I would say those also who watch them without, that was very eloquent of me, those who watch them without saying anything is where it begins. And I think part of our passivity begins in a shut down voice. So we can't walk into the world, or we struggle to walk into the world and stand up and be counted and say who we are and what we feel. Let's take a deep breath. So, firstly, I just want to say that expressing healthy anger is an essential part of being a healthy human being. So the healthy fight response has good boundaries, assertiveness in relationships, life, and the rest of your working life too. It can have aggressive self-protection where necessary, and this is essential. And some of the highest points are courage, leadership, and a force of character, or verve, or a fire that can be an extraordinary contributor to living a great life. So healthy anger and solid boundaries are essential to our well-being. But trauma leads us to overuse one of the 4 Fs of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And the opposite of a fight type can be found in the other 3. For example, a flight and fawn freeze type might be a too little voice that struggles to express how it feels and can leave a person feeling really stuck inside themselves, and their voices may have little or no boundaries, which can lead to unexpressed resentment, and at worst leading to a struggle to feel safe in relationships at all. And at worst even lead to autoimmune diseases and so on. More about that stuff later, and especially in the next episode of this, which will be part 2. So, when out of balance, when vocalized too much, a fight-oriented voice can be highly destructive and even abusive. They will often explode when they get triggered or confronted, and anger will come out as a very forceful blasting or cutting or whatever form of blade or weapon that they use. One of these things that's sometimes useful is to answer or identify the question, if you have a type of favorite weapon to use, what will it be? Are you cudgeling others over the head or punching them or metaphorically slapping them through the face with your words? Is it a kind of a disembowelment that you like to do, cutting through the belly and letting all of the bowels fall out? Or is it just a simple stab in the back? What is your kind of poison? I would like to know. So, because none of us get to be perfect in all of this. So used like this, a voice can be an intimacy-destroying defense, where you might blast the ones you love and potentially hurt them. So some of the worst negatives of the fight response can be linked to the psychological personality disorder of narcissism, which will be covered in more detail in the next episode. But in short, narcissism can be related to selfishness and a lack of empathy, but it can also be related to very controlling characteristics, including bullying, explosiveness, a sense of entitlement to other people. And sometimes they can be described as type A personalities that demand perfection from the people around them. So at its worst, the narcissistic fight type can also be abusive, sociopathic, and exhibit a human conduct disorder. So basically like highly destructive antisocial behaviors. Now, just to be clear, all of the 4 Fs express as attachment disorders. So what that means is that they result in a dysregulation in our ability to be attached to and connected with other human beings. It's often seeded with an ambivalence about being in relationships. I want intimacy and I want love, but I'm terrified of it. And just to be clear, many of us exhibit signs of having more than one of these 4 Fs as our defense pattern. So one of the ways that fight types avoid real intimacy and avoid the fear of abandonment is by pushing people away, losing friends and loved ones with angry outbursts, or through controlling demands for perfect behavior, for example. The fight type may demand unachievable standards of unconditional love and approval and set unachievably high standards for their partner's behavior towards them. So the only way that you can pacify or please them is by maintaining a standard of behavior and presence in the relationship that is impossible to maintain. So essentially at the bottom of it all is a demand for their own unmet childhood needs to be fulfilled. So the fight type may also be accompanied by an unconscious delusion of their own perfection. They may genuinely feel at some levels that they're somewhat perfect. And this may allow them to blame relationship problems and even their own problems on their partners, children, or friends. So with regards to this attachment style, the distortion is to control, to connect. In other words, for me to feel safe in connection with you, I need to control you. And if you go out of line, I will rage at you in order to get you back in control and back in alignment. So there's an unconscious thought or a belief at the bottom of it all that in order to get my needs met and not to be abandoned, in order for me to be safe and to be loved, I have an unconscious belief that I need to use control and power to ensure that my needs are met. So when I feel abandoned or unsafe, I will respond with anger and maybe even contempt. It might be boldly angry or sniping, disgusted responses to the other, belittling and shaming them. An additional nuance in this form of fight response, which adds in an element of what might be called entitlement, is that I might have a superpower of pinning others down in conversation. So this type of trauma response We'll engage in long monologues, leaving few or no gaps for the other to grab a moment to speak. And I might unconsciously seek out freeze and fawn types to speak at to satisfy this need. More about this aspect of the pattern next week. But as with all the 4F patterns of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, there's personal work to be done to heal and work through these patterns. All 4Fs at worst can create really destructive and toxic behavior. And we're working this all out together, really just to say, ideally we're walking each other home. The more you the more you are willing, or the more we are all willing to walk into and meet our own trauma, the more we realize that we're all super vulnerable and fragile and beautiful and ugly and kind of gorgeous at the same time. No one gets to escape scrutiny from these 4Fs, really. So one of the great challenges of our human lives is learning to communicate in a healthy way. Learning to speak together about our grievances and upsets is hard. Learning to be clear, honest, and kind may be the work of a lifetime. Next week, we'll continue investigating the fight type, looking at how narcissism interfaces with it, and finish with both the positive aspects of fight and with the treatment and recovery for this defense style. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know any feelings that came up as you heard about this, whether you are a fight type or have been in relationship or parented by a fight type. Either way, let's all be gentle with each other. And if you enjoyed these videos, there's some more of these either side of me, to the left and the right. And by next week, this one right here will be part 2.